Today for Devotions with Daniella, we are reading from the first book of Daniella, Uncultured, about growing up in the Children of God religious cult and going into the cult of the U.S. Army. This is Take One for the Team, and I am a captain deployed to Afghanistan. 25. Take One for the Team. Bagram, Afghanistan, 2014. By the 6th month of my second deployment, I was skinnier than I'd ever been, and the lack of sleep and good food had taken its toll on me. Alone in my single room, yet another storage container masquerading as a living space, I took down my bun and untwisted my braids, massaging my scalp so that maybe my head would stop pounding, which I knew was a futile gesture. I did what we always did in the Army. Take a Motrin for anything that hurts, drink water, and carry on. I flopped down onto my metal bunk. A Disney princess blanket hung from the top like a curtain. A small reminder to myself that I was still a girl. Taking off my boots, I wiggled and stretched my toes, forbidden pink nail polish winking at me, the only person who would ever see it. But none of my usual small comforts could make me smile. How had it all gone so wrong? This deployment had started out with so much promise. On the battlefield, Lieutenant Colonel Halter had made good on his word. Surrounding himself with people who fit his own leadership values of character, candor, and competence, he had built a team of dedicated professionals. He had reassured me that competence could be developed and that technical failures would always be okay, which he demonstrated during my first training mission brief to him and Brigade Commander Colonel Maxwell. My first brief to the big boss had not been to his liking, and Colonel Maxwell had been angry, even though he hadn't given us specifications in the first place. But Lieutenant Colonel Halter reassured me that it was okay to mess up the first time, just not the 10th. In contrast, I watched him fire and decommission a junior officer who he thought was a good man until the complaints rushed in from women he'd harassed. Character seemed to matter to Lieutenant Colonel Halter as much as it mattered to me. Tom had become my running buddy, and as we got in our daily 10 miles, our friendship bloomed. For the first time, I told the guy about the cult right away, sending him off to the Family International Cult Wiki page, letting him know I'd be open to talk about it. I thought that might scare him off, but instead he came back with thoughtful questions that deepened our discussions. I started to get to know him, too. He was 5 years older than me and from Seattle, a place I knew little about, and had joined the Army at 17, just prior to 9/11. It's actually not true. Just prior to 9/11. That is true. He'd been in the Army for 14 years, first as a helicopter mechanic and then a pilot, and was expected to get another promotion. At the top of his craft, he'd joined the famed 160th Special Operations Aviation Unit immediately after our deployment. We fell into a comfortable routine of long, hard runs at 6 a.m., getting to know more about each other with every step. After our workout, I'd head to my desk for a 12-hour shift, and he'd put on his flight suit, armored helmet, and bulletproof vest, climb into his bird, and fly all over Taliban country. I knew the danger he faced better than anyone. It was my job, after all. But I tried not to let it get in the way of our times together. In early February, I received the first report of a possible shoot-down. One of my soldiers ran up to me yelling, "Ma'am, the Chinooks got shot." My heart sank. Not more of us. Not Tom. Not again. I whirled around. I needed to get to my station. I had a job to do. But then there he was, tall and bright, his hair still matted from his helmet, striding into the Tactical Operations Center. It was the most beautiful sight I had ever seen. "Don't believe it, ma'am," Tom said. "Q here just means to say that some bad guys took a few pops at us. We're fine." I couldn't admit to him how badly I'd been scared, so I yelled at him. "Mr. Young, you failed to report kinetic enemy activity in real time? Come on." After that, it became impossible to hide my feelings, though they had taken me completely by surprise. How had I let this happen? I was always so careful to maintain my professionalism. One day, when I couldn't hold it any longer, I sent Tom a text message telling him how I felt, in Portuguese. He responded quickly, after 30 minutes, after he translated his own response into Portuguese. He felt the same. The next day, we walked together to Green Beans, the coffee and chai shop on base, for our first date, wondering how much time we'd have to get to know each other with no pressure, without the ever watchful eyes around us catching on. A relationship would be complicated, and I didn't think I had it in me, especially on the sand. So I tried to scare him off, using a tactic that sometimes worked with white men who'd been born and raised in America. The ones who wanted to marry the perfect girl next door and briefly mistook me for her. I told him how much I loved to salsa dance, expecting his smile to falter, the recognition to leave his eyes, and for us to go our separate ways. "Well, I don't know how to dance," Tom said, then looking me straight in the eyes, "but I can build you a dance floor." And then he grinned. Oh crap, I thought, I'm going to marry this guy. I smiled because I knew he knew it too. I'd seen it in his eyes. Somehow, though we were such different people in the details, there was something inside us that matched. Though we hadn't known each other for long, we were already fitting together, already becoming a team. I tried to fight the fantasy of what a life with him might be like. A life with someone I trusted to always have my back and never get scared away, no matter what darkness of mine I let him see. I steeled myself, trying not to get too attached, preparing myself for the loss that would inevitably happen. Experience taught me that the price of finding heaven meant there'd be hell to pay. But I also knew I was not willing to let him go. I was willing to fight for us. So, with the candor I had asked of my team, the candor that had been asked of me, I shared our relationship status with my subordinates and our command. We have to do this because when we're deployed, we're not allowed to have sex and everything gets very pressurized. We'd consulted another couple in our unit who'd been in the same situation. She was a captain, he was a warrant. They'd fallen in love during a deployment and married soon afterward. They advised us on how to navigate a burgeoning romance during deployment, under the increased scrutiny on women and pressure of General Order 1. There were very specific rules to follow, and we'd be under the strictest watch. The leadership constantly worried that we'd mess up, that they'd have to deal with the downsides of having a woman on their team at war. The rank made a difference too. Warrants are commissioned officers, so there was technically nothing wrong with any warrant and any captain, as long as one wasn't in command of the other. But there's a clear class system in the military, and while men often date down the ranks, when women do it, it garners a lot more attention. Our friends advised us to be as open as we could to make sure there could never be a question that we were above board and honorable. So that's what we did. The Lieutenant Mafia loved it. Finally, someone had tamed the independent Captain Mestinek. You can finally just be one of the bros, now that people know you're taken. First Lieutenant Mark Ackman, one of my better friends in the Lieutenant Mafia, said to me, clapping me on the back. What wasn't said, but was so obviously implied by my being taken, was that I'd also have less to fear from Rape Alley, which existed on this deployment too. With everyone knowing I was Mr. Young's girl, I was even safer from harassment than I was as the bitch and a captain under my own rank and stature. As we had hoped and expected, our leaders grudgingly agreed that there was nothing against the rules or decorum about a single captain and warrant officer hanging out in their free time, having declared a romantic interest in one another and an intent to be a couple. But we had to be careful. A major warned me that it could be bad for my career, regardless of how well we handled it. It wasn't worth it, and better to walk away. Another female captain chided me to watch out for any warrant officer who might be in pursuit of the Captain Mestinek trophy. Everyone knew the swagger of warrants, even on the sands, where sex was outlawed. I knew Tom wasn't one of those warrants, and from the way he'd referred to us as we from the very beginning, I knew I wasn't a trophy to him. I thought about how close I'd been to leaving the Army, how close I'd been to leaving everything. And suddenly, I was with a boss I respected, a team I loved, and the beginning of a relationship with someone who felt like he might be the one. Don't get too excited, it gets worse. You can get signed copies of Uncultured attached here or listen to me read it to you anywhere you get your audiobooks.